Welcome to part 2 of our exclusive interview with the Squatch detective, Steve Kohls. Now, if you haven't seen part 1, click here. It's a great show. In that webcast, we totally talked about the patterns of hoaxer behavior and who and what their target audience is. Not only that, but Mr. Kohls also talks about the amount of work and time it took to write 50 Large, his book, and his other book, What Would Sasquatch Do? In tonight's show, the Squatch detective provides us evidence that Todd Standing is an alleged hoaxer. We're going to be talking about the photograph that he sends to media sources, the one that is supposedly a video screen capture of Blinky. You know, the video that kind of does that. Okay. It's not a video. Okay, well, here's the deal. Mr. Kohls provides evidence. Oh my gosh, someone in the Bigfoot community providing evidence? Credibility? Backing up his claims? Oh, who knew? Well, yeah, he does. The image has different light sources, different focus points. It's a totally altered JPEG. Apparently, it's a very busy photograph. Well, not only that, but we also talk about Mr. Kohls' professional resume, his years working as a forensic interviewer, and the 7 years it took for him to have his first Bigfoot experience in Texas. But not only that, it gets better. He had another experience up in New York, where the creature was only standing maybe 150 feet away from him. What happens next? Well, you're just going to have to watch After Hours with Rictor to find out. Welcome to After Hours. My name is Rictor. I am your host.
Rictor!
What?
Leave him alone! It's Judgment Day for Sasquatch.
Thanks for dropping me like a stud.
Now we got Rictor going. We're gonna have to hear about it all night. That's a bunch of screaming memes out there, and that's the scoop that has been reported so far.
By your opinion that you are no-kill, you are dooming the species to be extinct.
Well, when you don't believe in Bigfoot, everything you see that might be one is something else.
We thought that we had the holy grail of DNA.
When are we going to make a video, Rictor? And I mean not an X-rated one.
Dr. Todd, you've also been called the scoff dick.
Yeah, well.
You can't talk about
I can't!
Hello? Is this thing on? Am I muted? Can you hear me?
Hey, Rictor, I've got a question for you. How does it feel to lose Bigfoot Bounty?
My question is, why do you think Bigfoot is real?
Welcome to part 2 of our exclusive interview with the Squatch detective himself, our investigative hero, Steve Kohls. Now, if you haven't seen part 1, click down below because that is the link to go watch the first part. We spank the hoaxers. It's an epic show. We talk about the methodology of the hoaxers and what their target audience is. It's like the Holy Trinity. You've got Ray Wallace and Ivan Marks and Tom Biscardi, the godfather of the hoaxers. Then there's the new disciples, Rick Dyer, Matt Witten, and Todd Standing. But before we jump into your recent Todd Standing debunking, Steve, I want to introduce you once again to my beautiful co-host, Tammy Murray, Sweet Sassy Glassy.
Dramatic pause.
And once again, my Team Tazer investigative reporter, Steve Alcorn.
What's up, Rictor, Tammy?
Now, if you guys don't know this, Mr. Kohls has been on 4 different TV shows about Bigfoot. Well, actually 3. One was about the Loch Ness Monster. Whatever. Steve, tell him what you were on.
In 2008, I was in Monster Quest, where I led a Nezra team into the Adirondacks. In 2011, I headed up an expedition, and I was on Nat Geo, The Truth Behind the Loch Ness Monster, where I actually led a team of divers and biologists looking at the loch and looking at the possibility of there being a Loch Ness Monster. In 2012, I appeared first on Paranatural, Sasquatch Planet, where I led my team into the woods of the Adirondacks, as the same thing we did also in 2012 with America's Book of Secrets. Both of those shows that were filmed in 2012 aired in 2013. So, and they appeared on Nat Geo and History Channel, respectively.
Last week, Mr. Coles shocked the Bigfoot community with some new evidence that pretty much seals the case. It seals the deal. It puts the final nail in the coffin for Todd Standing. It is the picture of Blinky. You know, that Bigfoot with like that special needs blinking eye. It's kind of ridiculous. Okay, well, the video that was taken down by Todd Standing that Phil Poling, Para Breakdown, had put up makes you wonder why. Well, Mr. Coles, the forum is yours. Explain to the Kool-Aid drinkers and to the Bigfoot community and the general audience how Todd Standing has hoaxed the world with this photograph of Blinky.
Well, first of all, Rictor, one of the more important things that we have to remember is that this got presented to us as a video. Well, I had looked around for a good still image, and I had found a good still image, downloaded it to my computer, and it sat in my computer for several weeks, not really getting around to the actual analysis of it. When I ran it through some programs, it turns out that this video still is actually a picture from a camera. It's not a video, it's a picture, it's a JPEG.
You are good.
This picture is not a video still capture like you would get off of a video, or even a stop frame from it. This is a legitimate JPEG. And if you look at evidence 1, what you're looking at here is it running a software program, the actual capture running a software program. But what it tells us is that it was actually shot with a camera, a Canon EOS 660D camera.
We're looking at the camera. This was what the picture was taken with?
This is what the picture was taken with, was this camera. Now, whether or not it's the exact lens on that particular camera, I'm not sure. The other thing, there was a lot of other little intricate details. I ran it through what they call an ELA test, which basically stands for it's a compression test to see if there's any errors. And those errors with compression and variations will show whether or not a film has been digitally manipulated. And if we look at evidence 3, which is the comparison photo of Blinky and the ELA test, you can see that there are 2, perhaps 3 separate images in that photograph. The first being the picture of the branches in the front, then some more branches perhaps behind it, and in the middle layer you see Blinky himself. You can tell these are all manipulated images, because in a real image that hasn't been manipulated, you would look for similar contrasting lines of the different pieces. So all the pieces would look uniform across the picture, not have so much contrast. In evidence 4, we have just it run through yet another program, thus confirming that it's still a JPEG, that this is not a fluke, that this information is the same information passed on to us. We also looked at some of the camera settings. For example, we have the shutter speed, the aperture, better known as the f-stop, and the ISO. Well, the ISO, which is the film speed, was set low. That meaning that that kind of setting, which ISO 100 is just about the lowest setting you can go with, the lowest you can buy film. Yes, with digital cameras now you can go to ISO 50, but ISO 100 is really slow. It's not made for bad lighting conditions. It's not made for conditions where something would be moving fast. Otherwise, you would get blur. I know. When my son used to run track, I used to have to change my f-stop on my camera and my ISO to settings that would make it faster, so that when he's running down the track and doing hurdles, I'm not getting a blur. So ISO 100 would cause a blur, as would the f-stop that it's set at, as well as the shutter speed. So all of these settings are basically prime for somebody using a tripod, first of all, and number two, having very ample lighting conditions. And to me, this reeks of studio. So that's what I'm concerned with, or some very good setting conditions.
Now, can I
which
ask you a
you
question?
not necessarily find when you're going out in the woods looking for a Sasquatch. You would have it set at high speed. You would have it set for low light conditions. This is not done.
Okay, this is a combination of multiple photos.
Right.
One is a computer-generated photo.
Right. Well, whatever image it's been put together, but still it retains the properties of the original photo. So we have something that's been layered into this photo to begin with, but the photo that was originally taken was taken under these setting conditions.
Steve,
Yes.
what is the track record of this software that you're using to run these tests on this picture?
Well, I ran it on two separate pieces of equipment. I took some of my own pictures, and all the information was correct. So, I mean, and I took it on some of Standing's manipulated work that we had seen from the wax statue, or the Eskimo-looking Bigfoot that he had, the puppet Bigfoot, as people called them, puppet foot. I ran that through the system, and it gave me no EXIF data. So, which it shouldn't have given me any EXIF data if it was taken from a video still. It should have been nothing there. So just the fact alone that it gave me this data means that it was taken from a camera, not from a video camera, or not a camera in a video setting. So the data to me reveals that this software is dead on. And not only did I use one system, which was the stuff I have on my own computer, but I also used it on a outsourced one from photoforensics.com. So they both gave me the same EXIF data. So it's been double checked. It's like taking your DNA to one lab and then going to another and saying it's the same.
No. So I noticed that you've been having a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, but a few particular people that really claim to have a lot of knowledge about photography and how it works, combating you in Facebook groups about your data. How do you respond to that?
Well, it's very interesting, though. The one gentleman, and I know the one you're talking about, claimed he had all this experience, but prove it. Again, we're looking at people trolling around. You know, oh, well, I'm a photographer, and I know, well, okay, so the fact is, okay, yes, ISO 100 takes the best quality photograph. However, you can't take away the fact that, number one, you can't use a monopod, because I actually had a photographer who wrote me in and said, well, the best case scenario for Standing would be that he used a monopod, you know, carry around a monopod with him in the woods. But he goes, that intrinsically has a problem too, because with all the settings on that camera, it would have a side-to-side blur. But you can't fit, I mean, the bottom line is, I don't care if you're a PhD in photography. Yes, you can make a picture with that, but the fact is look at the setting conditions. The setting conditions are, number one, they're not optimal for squatching. This is set for something that's at speed. And that's why, if you look, they can argue all they want about that, but if you look at the graphic with the circle that I actually got off a photography website, you can see that ISO 100 is set for lighting conditions. It's not set for moving people. That would be at a higher SO speed, as you can see. It would be, you know, it's not set, not rated for the shutter speed. It's not rated for the f-stop. These are facts. So the bottom line is, if the Sasquatch is going to stand there very still and not move, absolutely, you can take a picture like that. I'm not denying you can't take a picture like that. Obviously, a picture was taken using this. But to have all their great photography finesse, can they explain why the item in the foreground is focused, the stuff in the middle ground is blurry, but they also have the Sasquatch, which is kind of further behind, off focus too? You have two different points of focus, which automatically told me that this was a digitally manipulated object. Well, you know, I was going to run with the tests, and the results are the results, but the results came up that it was digitally manipulated. Fact, not fiction. You know, it's the same as an anthropologist, or, for example, I'll give you, hang on, let me give you a good example. When I was over in Loch Ness, I had gotten these beautiful pictures reproducing the Robert Preston Loch Ness creature. I reproduced it, knowing that it was sunlight hitting a copper roof that was reflecting upon the lock. Okay? Well, they had some scientists say, well, I think it's a bunch of rowboats. Well, that's funny. He may do that, say that in his opinion, but I was able to recreate it. So sometimes if you're not looking at the evidence just because you're a name or you've done this for so long, your opinion doesn't necessarily matter unless you do the work. And the bottom line is this, is that if you look at X, Y, and Z, those are all facts. And they're facts that, I don't care what this, it's kind of funny because the gentleman you're referencing to, Tammy, said that I have 20 years of photography behind me. And I said, well, I have, 17 years of doing this analysis behind me. Here's my proof. It's all provable. Where's yours? And the guy disappeared.
Yeah.
Why did he disappear? Because I'll tell you why. Because he's full of baloney. He was throwing that out there because he wasn't winning the argument.
Mm-hmm.
Because, number one, you can't take all these settings and say they're optimal for Sasquatch. They're not. Why would you set something out at a low speed setting? Todd Standing, a man who owns a production company, Outstanding Productions, should know that. Should know that you don't set your camera at a low speed setting because these things move fast. If he had any knowledge of these creatures at all, they just don't sit there and go. So it's amazing how he can get these creatures to sit there and pose. This is a bunch of bunk. Not to mention the final fact of that this was supposed to be a video, not a photograph, and they seem to lose that concept that even these photography experts. Well, the point is, this is not supposed to be a photograph. This is supposed to be a moving picture where Blinky, actually his name should be Winky, goes like this.
Yeah, that is the bottom line.
I hope that kind of clears it up.
That the picture is not a screen or a still from a video. Okay, so the picture that you sent me, the kind of white looking layer in the front, that's the front. The black is in the back, and then the Squatch Blinky is in the middle.
Now, if that is a video screen, if that is a video, then you won't have that.
Okay, I see.
That's what he's talking about.
Okay, gotcha. I do have a counterpoint on the sitting still for long periods of time. Bart Catino has stated that a Sasquatch is a creature that can sit very still for long periods of time. However, that doesn't change the fact that that picture has been manipulated, and it is a picture, not a video.
And my counterpoint to that, Tammy, would be absolutely, but one should not go into the field expecting a Sasquatch to sit for a long period of time.
Right. No, you're not going to be that lucky.
Yeah. I mean,
that's a moot point in this conversation, really, because the bottom line is it is a photograph, not a video. That is where, I mean, we're uncovering the myth about this picture.
The fact is if you look in the foreground, you see this very bright. Those are the branches. Then you see another shade, which is the actual Sasquatch, and then you see yet another shade, which I believe is the actual backdrop from the Sasquatch. So you're looking at three different layers. You're looking at layer one, which is what you're seeing in front. Layer 2 may be in front of the Sasquatch. That's the blurry stuff, and layer 3 is the Sasquatch itself. So what I'm looking at here is the reason why you have different levels of focus is because it's a layered picture, and one of the layers is not in focus like the other two.
So this could have been done in Photoshop, is what you're saying?
Absolutely. I mean, this is digitally manipulated, absolutely. And what you're looking at basically is the same capture in the Blinky video. No matter how many times he had to repeat the same image, and then just merely manipulating a blink, using a clone painting, a cloning device over the eye, and then back up again, and then done. So this is obviously not a video; it's a JPEG. So, what's going on here, Mr. Standing? How come this is? Now, a lot of people try to criticize me. In fact, one guy even got on my blog and had told me that I had made this all up, that I'm the actual hoaxer. So what I did was, and if you look at the last thing I sent you, Rictor, the last item I sent you was the newspaper article where I got that picture from. But you see, sometimes I release information like that. Is what I do is, and this is basically a hoax buster strategy, is I come out with all that information, but I didn't release the source of the information because I'm waiting for the standlings and the pundits to go, oh, where did you get those pictures? And this is exactly what happened. So what I do is the strategy is, and don't air this, but this is the strategy I use, is I let the pundits come at me and say, oh, well, you know, how would you get an original standing? You know, I don't see how you would get one with the properties on it. Standing keeps that stuff close to the vest. Well, I had already known where I had gotten that picture from. So it's kind of like a one, oh, yeah, here's the tip, boom. It came from him. So I let the pundits make all these excuses, and now when I say, well, here's the source, now you hear nothing but crickets.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. Since my first day that article came out, that's where you saw everybody arguing with me. The second day, when I came out with that stuff, not a peep. Shut them all up, pretty much.
Yeah, you just kicking ass.
Who are you gonna call? Hoax busters. Squatch Detective Steve Coles.
You have to make sure that you have to look for the error they make. You know, Standing, when he did Puppet Face, really didn't make too many errors with that, except for it just looked bad.
Right.
Again, in that picture, there was different light sources. And
if only he had taken that photograph of the puppet maybe 100 feet away, then it'd be a lot more, ooh, maybe not. Way too close. Okay, this photo.
As far as Blinky, and now we can see that the actual source of the picture. And like I said, this guy said that I was hoaxing this, and then I grabbed it from a still and attributed to all these properties and stuff like that. So I gave everybody in my next blog the link to the photograph, the link to where they can download the photograph themselves, run it through their own software, and the source of that is none other than Todd Standing himself. Let me try to weasel out of that one, that image, and you can see contributed by Todd Standing. So basically, he took the best picture he could off his computer of Blinky, which obviously would have to be the JPEG, and sent it to him. Obviously, you wouldn't take a still capture.
Now, I do not have a degree in computer animation. All I have is years and years of being a fan of special effects and science fiction, watching bad sci-fi with bad special effects, great sci-fi like Industrial Light and Magic. Looking at this, you can clearly tell that it is layered, not just by the study the analysis that you did, Steve, but just by looking at the image, how it's a computer-generated blurred creation with a layered composite in front of it of that little twig and that tree branch.
Well, yeah, exactly. You see something in looking at it, it's supposed to be in front of the Sasquatch. You see a very crystal clear stick sticking up. You see a blurry image, and then you see a crystal clear Sasquatch. You can't have multiple layers of focus on a picture. Video camera or not a video camera even. You can only have one focal point.
And let's review the facial features of Blinky is Todd Standing.
It does, I've seen some of that saying. I can't say that with 100% certainty because people will say, well, that was digitally manipulated like that. But it sure does look a lot like Todd Standing, just saying. Perhaps that's why he's grown his big scruffy beard back again. I don't know.
Exactly.
Well, I just got to say, Todd, you have some seriously large Canadian balls to do that, if you did do that.
But the beautiful thing about this, Rictor, is case closed, the picture is bogus. That's the end of it. There's no weaseling around it.
Mr. Standing, I sent you a private message on Facebook, which I know you have seen. Please come and join us on After Hours with Rictor and prove what you have is real.
Steve, be nice.
Prove to the world what you have is real, Todd, please. The burden of proof is to the person making the claim, not the rest of us to disprove, although we're finding it pretty easy.
Okay.
The burden of proof is yours, Todd.
It's funny because Todd did address this issue by saying basically nothing except for, well, there's samples, and wait till the samples come back for a review.
Waiting. We are waiting.
You know, did he send the samples to the same lab Dyer sent his? Just wanting to know.
Maybe he sent them to Melba Ketchum.
Could be. And that probably would be it. Well, it's in the Melba study.
A question has come up, Mr. Coles, wanting to know, since hoaxers are making money off of Bigfooters and the general audience, is it wrong for debunkers and whistleblowers such as yourself to be making money off of hoaxers?
Well, exactly how much money do you think I make off of those hoaxers, number one? Not much. You'd be surprised. You don't get much for a book sale. You don't. But let me ask you a question. Here's a book from an FBI. Here's a series of books from an FBI profiler. Nobody has any issues with that. There's books from another profiler. Nobody has issues with that. These are people that have done research, have whistleblown, have arrested people for crimes. Do you think their blood, sweat, and tears is worth it? In my case, when I wrote 50 Large, right here, this is the research that went into it. Okay? This is the research. My question to you is, do you think that was all free? Do you think a police report that's 88 pages long free? Don't you think to get to the bottom of the mystery and all my blood, sweat, and tears, I earn a little to write a book and sell it, perhaps? I mean, obviously, I'm not writing a book and I'm selling it for $45 or $60 or $30, or nor am I charging people admission on a website to see the evidence.
Ooh, that is a burn to Todd standing right there.
Not to mention that if you read my blogs, a lot of this evidence comes out in little drips. But the bottom line is that I don't force anybody to buy my book. You know, I don't force anybody to see this evidence. I write a book here. You want to read about it, go ahead, read about it. You don't, I don't care. It's okay. It's okay not to want to read about it. That's fine. Is it profiteering? Thank you. That's my text message. But you know, it's not profiteering. That's a book that needed to be written for the record.
That was a very good. That was a very good answer.
And hey, you don't want to make a few dollars off of it? That's fine.
Yeah, you should. You're entitled to. I mean, there's nothing. Hoaxing isn't against the law, and making money off of hoaxers isn't against the law. It's not like you're getting rich off it. You're doing a service to the Bigfoot community, which is already plagued with ridicule and skepticism 100-fold, 10-fold. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, I kind of look at it this way. There's so many books out there about the existence of Bigfoot. Okay? How about a few books from a Bigfoot researcher about the non-existence of Bigfoot, or the hoaxers, or the misidentifications, or stuff like that? I mean, we need to show the good, the bad, and the ugly. We've shown the good. We're all in favor of showing the good, but it's the bad and the ugly people have problems with. Oh, we shouldn't talk about hoaxers.
Right.
You know, again, people only want to see the good, not the good, bad, and the ugly. Unfortunately, I'm one of those guys that, hey, I look at it from all kinds of aspects. As an investigator, I would be not doing my job if I didn't look at it from all aspects.
Bigfooting equals politics equals religion.
Actually, I think that's reversed. I think Bigfoot equals religion equals politics.
Okay, yeah, in that order.
Because people have certain beliefs about Bigfoot. Oh, it mind melds, it transports, it warps through the different metaphysics. It does all these things. And you have to politically walk through these lines not to offend. Well, I've managed to, again, one of my favorite sayings is tact is the art of getting your point across without making an enemy. Mm-hmm. I use that time and time again, even to the people that believe in Bigfoot, you know, can transwarp and stuff like that. Now, if there's a person taking pictures and they see Squatches in their pictures, whatever, do I go after them? Oh, you're a hoaxer. No. You know, if they truly believe what they want to believe, who am I to ruin their fun, really? Right. I'm not going to go out and criticize even their research. Okay, it's not for me. I'm going to talk about my research and some of the stuff I feel is credible, And then I'm going to bust the hoaxers and the misidents, too, and stuff that people bring to me. Now, the hoaxers, of course, I go after. But if somebody brings a misident to me, I will gladly go over, and I will keep them anonymous, and I will do everything. The same thing with all my witnesses that come to me, I keep anonymous. The hoaxers, I won't. Absolutely not. But those I go after because of the detriment they do to our community. You know, first we had Dyer, we had Biscardi, now we got Todd standing, but I pretty much put a sock in his mouth for a little bit. And his people that wanted to follow him, there is a method to my madness, and that's I give them just enough to let the pro people in that camp to go after me. And one of the arguments that somebody had made in another forum too, Tammy, was that, do you think Todd would go through all this problems and going into the woods and blah blah blah, And I said, well, do you think, a person would go to the extent of going, a few states away to buy a stuffed Bigfoot and then trot across the country? And the person came across to me and said, well, that's easy. Yeah, of course he would, because it's about making money. And I go, oh, so Todd taking his film across Canada, charging admission in small theaters, that wasn't about making money? Him asking people to buy this and that and this and that with all his crap footage, that wasn't about making money? Well, it pretty effectively shut that guy up. In fact, his response to that was, whatever. Well, that's a really logical argument to the point I just brought up. You proved your point myself. They can't win this argument. The fact is that's a botched photo, number one, and you can't tell me the motivation isn't money. Look what he's doing. It landed him on Survivor Man. You think he did that for free? Mm-mm.
Yeah.
They paid him probably pretty handsomely.
And when cornered and asked, how can you prove that this is Bigfoot? Well, the answer is usually, well, it couldn't be anything else. Only Bigfoot could bend a tree over like that. Nothing else could have done that. That is not an answer.
That's not science. That is junk science.
Well, yeah,
Yep.
and there is no scientific method being applied to Survivor Man.
It doesn't matter what, you look at my evidence and stuff. I present stuff, but I don't come out and say this is definite proof. I come out and say, yeah, we spotted, like the FLIR image we had last year, yeah, we spotted a solitary lone, and I find it very, very highly unusual that somebody would be walking down in there in the pitch black without the assistance of light, because we were also looking with our naked eye. We could hear it moving around, whatever. We had the FLIR out, and we could just see this upright figure moving around. It is what it is. That's it. That's all we can report.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with a rock being thrown into camp. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't know if you can hear this, but this was a piece I ran on the show a few weeks ago that nobody had heard. It's a call-in from Tom Biscardi.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Hello, Squatch Detective Radio.
Kudos and salutations.
Hey, Tom, how are you doing tonight?
Do me a favor, get me a... Joan.
Oh, no, not again.
Please, honey. You gotta understand something. Everything you do is being picked up here. Every time you turn on a switch, every time you have those doors going up and down and squeaking, he gets feedback and he has to go in and edit it, all this crap. All right, please? Do you want to give the interview? So don't move. Yeah, that's a good idea. Joan, get me a Diet Peach Snapple and a glass of ice. Hurry up.
So, Tom, I want to thank you, first of all, for coming on Squatch Detective Radio tonight.
I got a ton of things to do, and I can't jack jaws all night long.
Okay,
all right? Can we just get this done? Please?
Sure. I'm sorry about that. I wanted to talk to you about what you think about the Bigfoot community's reaction to the Morgan Matthews film Shooting Bigfoot.
I'm not going to sit here and volley back and forth with you or anyone else about the Bigfoot world. And half of them, 3/4 of them, they're all full of shit. Okay? They don't know what the f*** they're doing, and you're riling me up. Okay? But I'm glad you are.
Oh, yeah? Well, I don't mean to rile you up, but if that riled you up, how about this? How about all the stuff I put on the web about your involvement in the 2008 Bigfoot Body Hoax? The receipts, the lies, the police reports, the lack of you making a statement, the I touched it, I smelled it, I tasted it BS. What have you got to say about that?
It's about time that somebody comes forth and tells the truth.
Wow. Well, I'm finally glad, Tom, you're admitting that I'm correct. That's amazing. That's a step in the right direction. Now, the next question I have, how about this big museum scam you have going? You're always taking money from people to build museums that never seem to get built.
They don't know what they're doing. They all said, oh, well, Biscardi's in the game just for the money. Bullshit. I'm here to do one thing, nothing. You got it? I'm tired of talking, to be honest with you, okay? I talk all fucking day, as you know, on this phone. And I got 2 more messages here waiting for me. Bullshit. I don't want to talk right now. Joan, get me a Snapple.
Oh, I love how you did the sound effects with the.
Most of that, Rictor, was from that movie, Shooting Bigfoot movie.
Yeah, those are all cool.
I don't want to see this movie.
Like how I pieced this together, Steve? I took all kinds of quotes and I just mixed them up.
Yeah, I loved it.
I don't want to watch this Dyer movie alone. How's that?
Well, Rick's not in Vegas anymore, so he can't watch it with you.
Okay, I think we've kind of talked all about the hoaxers and the harm to the community, and it's all about the bottom line, the business plan, as Steve Kohl has presented.
And he's earned his Bigfoot pendant.
Yes.
Yay.
Mr. Coles, I gotta say, having you on, you are a wealth of information. I am impressed, and Richter's very rarely impressed. So I
actually looped some of his mumbles into a couple of loops where he was going I like this. But he does that in the movie. He's like, I, and I was like, well, I'm gonna loop that sucker.
Tom and Dyer, they must really hate you.
I can tell you that Rick Dyer does not hate Steve Coles. I can tell you that. Because I've talked to Rick Dyer about Steve Coles.
Oh.
How long? How long ago?
Last year. Before, not anything recent, but he didn't hate you at that time. He actually respects you. At that time, he did.
Why would he respect him? Because he calls him on it.
I think so, to be honest with you.
God, Coles, you got quite the bromance, and I'm the gay guy. You got this whole thing going on with Dyer. God, if I was Dyer, I'd be hating you. Oh my gosh, if I was Biscardi, I'd be hating you.
Let me talk about that a bit. First of all, I think Rick Dyer, did respect me, but at some point that changed, and he had tried to pull a crank on me out in Los Angeles, which didn't work out too well for him. I flew out there, I had a good time, and that was that. He didn't show up, which is probably the best thing that could have happened for his cause and our cause, because he didn't show up. And I knew he was up to something, but he was trying to hurt me. I mean, literally, he was trying to get me to take a $100 cab ride to the middle of nowhere and not be there. So
kind of creepy.
I think whatever likability he had for me, he lost. I certainly don't have any likability for trying to do that to me. So
no.
And that's that for that. As far as Biscardi, I could give a shit whether he likes me or not.
Okay, being that he's the godfather of the Bigfoot hoaxers, you better be careful.
What's he gonna do?
I don't know. Give you an offer you can't refuse.
He's gonna give me an offer I can't understand. It kind of goes like this. If you're gonna lie to my face, that's one thing. But you know what? When you sit there and make lies up, like one of the lies that Biscardi had made up was that there was some video of me riding ATVs with Whitten and Dyer that was before all of this, the revelation. Well, the funny thing is that I had never met Whitten or Dyer before January or February, actually, of 2009, which is actually when I had flown down to get that receipt and collect whatever evidence I can. I had never been on an ATV until really a couple of years ago when I sat in the back of a trailer one. I've never driven one of those things in my life. And my girlfriend, who has driven ATVs, she can attest to that. I don't drive them. I don't like them. I don't drive them. So
I've never been on an ATV.
And the way she drives them, I'm afraid to get on the back of one with her on it again.
She sounds a lot like Tammy Murray.
I almost got bounced off the back of the thing, and not again.
Steve, in part one, you told us all about how you infiltrated Biscardi's camp. and you presented to us your evidence about Biscardi and Dyer being hoaxers. Now, tell us about you. Who are you? What's your story? What are you about?
I had first seen The Legend of Boggy Creek probably when I was about 6 years old. That kind of started my interest in it. And I remember my father watching it, and that's, you know, I was sitting there, he was watching it, and that's it, I was hooked. And throughout my career, I was a firefighter, I was a paramedic, and I was an investigator all at once. And I was on the retail side of things. I worked for a lot of loss prevention departments. I did a lot of sting operations where I would go in and buy merchandise that was being sold at bars and stuff like that. I was the guy, I was trained in forensic interviewing, where I would go in and interview these people that were thought to have been involved in crimes, and probably about 90% of the time, with nothing going in, I would get a confession out of them that they were stealing something or their hunch was right.
So all of this experience has contributed to your success in being the Squatch detective.
Well, yeah, because I take nothing at face value. I try not to. In fact, when I got into this, I thought that this was going to be a bunch of bull. And it turned out, after interviewing some police officers that had encounters, also I had the opportunity to interview some firefighters down in the southern tier. So there was a lot of different things. The scientists as well, biologists had seen something. So when I was interviewing, the most prevalent thing, I think, with the time it really transformed me, is I was talking to this truck driver who was an ex-Marine, had served in Vietnam, and he's telling me this story. And as he's telling me this story, every single hair on his arm was standing up on end.
Ooh.
And the jugular vein distension. He's recalling something. He saw something. And you can't fake that. So given all that, I knew there was something to this. And it took me a good 8 years before I had, or 7 years before I had my first encounter. I had to think about what year it was. But it took me 7 years to have my first encounter.
Now, was that a sighting or a vocalization?
That was a sighting.
What did you see?
Through night vision scope.
How far away was it?
Oh, God.
100 yards?
No, it wasn't even that far. It was probably about maybe 35, 80 yards.
Wow, pretty scary.
I could see it. No, because actually there was a bunch of reeds. I was down in Texas. There was a bunch of reeds, and it popped its head up, and it was looking at where we were moving around, and it squatted back down. And then we just heard this big tumult, and there was the big path where it had run out. But that wasn't my creepiest, my best sighting. My best sighting actually occurred a couple of years ago in New York, where I was going out, and it's been shown on a couple of TV shows I've been on.
We haven't got to your second sighting yet.
I'm getting there.
Okay, because I'm like holding my dick for it. So to speak. My hands are above. My hands are above.
So my second sighting, our team was on a break. We had done some tree knocking, some calls. I forget exactly what we were doing preceding, but we were all kind of sitting around the campsite. We were taking a break. I at the time was a smoker. Not anymore, thank God. But I got up. I was going, okay, I'm going to have a cigarette, and I'm going to go get some batteries, because I think something needed batteries. I'm not quite sure what it was. It was either my headlamp or something. So I got to my car to get batteries. I get the batteries, stick them in my pocket. I'm lighting up, having a smoke, and I take my flashlight that I had, just a little pretty bright 230 lumen flashlight, and I shine it down one side of the road, which is usually where all the activity is. It's downhill, and it's to the north. And then I turn around and shine my flashlight to the south, which is actually uphill. And there was one standing there about 150 feet away next to a utility pole off the dirt road. And it's sitting there, and I can see the eye shine looking at me. It's blinking as I'm sitting there, and I'm just freeze. And for about 40, 45 seconds, I'm just frozen there. And I'm looking at it, and the first thing it does is it turns. It looks quickly like that to look for an out, and it's sitting there blinking at me. And I think what was going on, it was probably wondering if I had noticed it, because I wasn't moving. So I think it was just staying perfectly still, just to say, does it see me? Does it see me? Does it see me? Well, I moved my flashlight a little bit, and it turned and it walked into the wood line on the south side of our campsite, where we were camped out, our base camp. So I call a team out real quick, and I call the second team out, and I have a base camp team. First team goes up the road with the videographer, and we actually have the video of it where they discover the cut in the dirt where it had stepped up and go into the woods. So that was cool as hell. I didn't even know they had gotten that because I had just directed them to where it was, and then I had to measure how tall it was. It was about 8 foot tall. The other team had kind of covered our backs on the north side. I wanted them north. I was still standing kind of in the middle. And the base camp called back just as everybody was hitting it, saying they could hear something moving along the south, eventually moving off towards the west in the base camp. So they were hearing it moving off. So it was quite an exciting a time. And the funny thing is that I had a videographer at the time with me, and he would accompany us on missions. Well, the video, and you can hear the audio going, yeah, we hear something moving along the south side of and so everything was just caught 1, 2, 3. And when they actually came up and interviewed me, and you could even see I was like stunned. Because I had, despite having these glimpses, I mean, I've had, it's one thing seeing it in night vision. It was time in Alabama, I saw it in night vision after somebody had saw it in a thermal imager. I looked and I saw it walk in for 3 seconds into the woods. I ran up to the wood line, I heard it walking around, but I wasn't going to go in there without backup. Then there was a time in Catskill, New York, where I had seen it one flash away real fast. So up until that point, I mean, it was just the most amazing thing to have that length of time, and just to see, looking there, blinking at me, and you could see the eye shine, the red. It was kind of orange. It was not quite red. It wasn't quite yellow.
Were you scared?
No, because the months building up to that, there was a lot of activity going on. The year previous, there was a lot of activity going on. We were getting escorts when we would walk up the road, the dirt road that's there, and this is a very isolated part of the Adirondack State Park. We would hear something paralleling us on both sides of the woods on the road. So you'd walk up and you'd hear these footprints, or these footsteps rather, and you'd stop and they would keep on going, and then they'd stop. And then you'd move up and they would continue on along with us. And then, we would also be in base camp, and we would hear. At one time we thought there was 3 of them because we could hear 3 distinct movements, and they were just kind of surrounding the base camp, moving around. And the minute we would move out, they would move back and disappear for a couple hours. So it was a lot of exciting stuff going on.
And that's when you became a real big believer, or was it when you first saw it in the FLIR and the night vision?
When I became without 100%, it was back in 06 when I had my first sighting. Then I knew. But I came in as a skeptic, but it took me a very short period of time after talking to people forensically, looking at their body language, looking at their signs, asking them questions, trying to elicit something, and nothing came. That's when I started to say, I think there's something really to this.
Well, I do have one question about your sighting, Steve. Because 45 seconds, that's a long sighting, comparatively speaking. So did you get a good sense for the creature, the animal, whatever it is? Did you get a good sense about it whenever you, I'm assuming that you got a pretty good look at it, even though it was lit by flashlight? You saw eye shine?
I saw eyes, and the rest of it was like just this dark outline. So I would say it was long-haired, it was lanky, it was... it's your typical New York Bigfoot. They're very long, lanky, long-haired. I couldn't get much facial detail because, even with a 700 or a 320 lumen flashlight at about 150 feet, isn't really the greatest thing to light up something.
Mm-hmm.
You should have had a lightsaber.
I should have.
You'd be surprised what those things can light up.
I actually now have a 720 lumen flashlight, and it looks like a lightsaber.
Don't you wish you had a gun?
No.
So you're not pro-kill?
I'm not pro-kill at all.
Don't bring in the body to protect the species.
Nope. If I find one dead, okay. If one gets run over, whoops. But I'm not going to go out and kill one. No,
Tyler Bounds almost ran one over.
I would have just went, okay, there he is, let's go.
Oops, my bad.
Oops. We can always write that one off as something else. But
what would your insurance company say when you told them the damage on your car was caused by a...
You think I care? I got a Bigfoot in the bag. I'm going to make money. Show me the paper, Steve. Show me the paper.
Yep, there they are.
There it is. Now, really, a lot of people ask me too what would be the first thing I would do. The first thing I do is if I had a body, it'd get hauled off right to a newspaper, or not a newspaper, rather a news station, and say, you need to come out here and take a look and video this thing right now. And then whatever it is, it is.
It's interesting how, you could be like, this is what I would do, but you don't know what you're going to do until the actual situation occurs. For instance, Justin Smea took me shooting. I learned how to shoot a rifle and a shotgun for the first time, and I've always been, no kill, don't kill the Bigfoot. But when you're holding the rifle, I'm like, Justin, if one were to run in front of me right now, I would blast the thing to Kingdom Come. You don't know how you're going to react until the actual situation occurs.
Well,
And then I felt like the biggest hypocrite. I'm like, I'm supposed to be no kill, and yet I'm like got a hard on to shoot Bigfoot now. Thanks, Justin Smale. Let's do it.
No, I just couldn't find myself to do it. I just couldn't. The reason why is call me strange, but I don't think I could even shoot a deer. I'm not a hunter type. If I shoot something, I shoot it with a camera. That's the way I've always been. If I want to eat, I go to the store. So
if we all went squatching, Coles is going to get the food, and he's going to be taking the pictures. Tammy's going to be doing the shooting.
I'll be taking a nap in a tent somewhere.
Yeah, that's okay. And what would I be doing? I have bad aim. I mean, I would shoot your grandma before I'd shoot Bigfoot. So
I'm with Steve. I couldn't shoot a deer either. But I'm probably it's probably just because I can't stand to see blood. I'd pass out.
To me, it's kind of funny. I'm just, creatures, animals, they just have a soft spot in my heart. They just do. I'm the kind of guy that, I see the duck, I run over to the duck. I see the deer, I stop and I watch the deer. It's just, there's some people say, oh, that's dinner. I'm not necessarily like that. People at work are always, but the one thing that I don't have is a fear. Because, like at work, when I go to work, there's a skunk that visits the front of the house I work at. And everybody's, it gets dark out and they got to go off shift. I usually work either overnights or midnight sometimes, and they're always running out. I'm like, oh, don't be afraid of the skunk. He's not going to do nothing to you. And they're deadly afraid of a skunk. Me, I'll stand out there and I'll watch him walk around, and he'll look up at me, and he doesn't care I'm there. I know about their nature. So I know there's nothing to worry about, and I know when, okay, that's a warning sign I got to get.
So you're not a member of PETA, people who eat tasty animals?
Well, I'm not. You know what? I'm not a big. I'm not a PETA supporter either.
You're not a tree hugger.
No, I'm not a tree hugger, but by the same token, I'm not a hunter. I'm kind of. I love my animals. I got to say, I'm fascinated by it.
You're more of like the observational type.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like Steve, why do you gotta pet the turtle? The turtle doesn't care if you pet it, but
you're a sweetheart. You are a total sweetheart.
Turtles.
I'm a teddy bear. I will not.
You are a teddy bear. Steve, I'm going to say I believe you, just like I believe Kathy Strain, and this is why. You're not constantly blowing your horn. Look at me, I saw a Bigfoot, I've got mugs to sell, I got this to sell. You're not pushing that. You are debunking people and their bogus claims. You are a integral part of the Bigfoot community. You are a real stand-up man, right? Wouldn't you say, Tammy? I mean, look at him. I mean...
Yeah, after sitting here talking to you face-to-face, it's I like you. I mean,
thanks.
I have no reason not to believe you. I don't have any of those. My spidey sense didn't go off.
She has a lot of spidey sense. She has spidey sense about some close friends of ours that we talk about constantly. We're not too sure about Steve Alcorn and what he supposedly heard.
But he's wearing a hat. If it was black, he'd look like
Steve's here. Sorry. Just playing, Steve. No, but I mean, I've listened to your show quite often, and when you've been on other people's blog radio programs, and I've never heard your Bigfoot story in such depth and detail, and I'm taking your word for it because a man is as good as his word. And you've never shown to me to be a liar like other people have. So,
well,
yeah.
you know, the thing is there's nothing spectacular about. Even, you know, I do expedition recaps. There's nothing spectacular about any of our evidence. Yeah, we got something on FLIR last year. We had a FLIR imager with us. We got a solitary object walking around. Okay, it is what it is. Is it Bigfoot? Who the hell knows? I had a rock thrown into camp last year, a good size rock. In fact, if you hang on a second, I'll even get it. It was this rock right here. It's a pretty good size rock.
Yeah, that could hurt you.
We heard this thing come in, hitting the boom. Now, either this is a rock thrown by something. Can't say it's a Sasquatch because I didn't see it, but I can circumstantially say it was. Either that or it's a meteorite, but it wasn't hot, so I don't think it was a meteorite. You know, it's the people that come out with this spectacular pieces of evidence. And over the years, I've analyzed them and I've debunked a lot. And a lot of stuff I still get that I just don't talk about because I can't waste my time into coming up with. Like when I first came out, I was doing all these reports on different videos and stuff like that and reaching out. I just don't have the time to do that anymore because there's just so much. Now I just concentrate on the big things. And I concentrate on my own stuff, my own field team. And I'm blessed to have a good bunch of people. And like I say, the thing is we're not flash. We enjoy what we do. I remember I had our first meeting of this new field team last year. Because originally I was outsourcing. I was using a paranormal team. Well, some things got a little grifty there because they decided, a few of them decided, or the team leader decided of the paranormal team that there was something paranormal about Bigfoot. You know, I don't buy into that. Because he had no evidence to do it. I've been there, and he's having these experiences. I'm not. So I'm going to step away from that. And that was the direction I was going. So last year I formed a new team, and I remember meeting my team. We met in a big public location at a meeting conference hall, and people asked me, Steve, what is your goal? And I said, I have one goal with my research team. One goal, and that's to have fun. It's not to capture Bigfoot. It's not to capture evidence. It's not to prove the Bigfoot's real to the world. It's to have fun, because if you have fun first, the rest of the stuff should be pretty easy to get.
And it all falls into place.
Exactly. And the other thing that I did with my team is, and I told this, I said, if you guys have a girlfriend, a wife, whatever, a domestic partner, whatever, bring them along if they want to come along. If the woods is not their thing, fine. They can hang out at base camp if they like camping. But invite them. If the invite is out there, they're going to be feeling more comfortable about what their partner's doing, and therefore you can turn around and make this into a family thing. And that's why when I meet, particular, and I have a couple of different branches. I have a field team and I have an investigative team. And the funny thing is not one of these people has a really big imprint on the web. These guys are willing, and these guys want to stay kind of quietly. We're on Facebook, but they are basically, we talk on our own group page. And that's it. They don't go out and put themselves out there because they have no interest in it.
We ask the following questions to all of our guests. Do you think Bigfoot is your friend? Does Bigfoot have mind speak? Does Bigfoot cloak? Etc., etc., etc.
Well, here's a few things. Number one, and I've written another book on it, what would Sasquatch do?
Dramatic pause.
Dun, dun, dun.
Like I said, I've written What Would Sasquatch Do? That's this one. And this explains how Sasquatch, number one, is not a mind speaker. It's a primate. And if you look at Bigfoot as a primate, it's not your friend either. Can it be friendly? Absolutely. But is it something you're going to sit down on a tree stump next to and talk with? Don't think so. Is it going to be something that gifts you? Possibly. But it's not going to mind speak with you because it's a primate.
Well, no animals on this planet have telepathy.
Well, there are certain things that they can communicate with, and it's silently, and it's called infrasound.
Well, yeah, but that's not telepathy. That's not from my brain to your brain.
Not necessarily on land animals, but with aquatic animals, such as a dolphin or a whale, it could be. Now, here's an interesting, a few interesting
Those are some extraordinary claims. The burden of proof lies with the person making the claim.
Well,
where's your evidence to back that up, Dr. Johnson?
Stuff I read. But does, as far as the Sasquatch, does it have infrasound? Well, let me give you a little bit of advice on that, a little tip. What I have found is that in mammals, the biggest animal of each different family seem to have this ability. The biggest cats do, lions and tigers, have infrasound.
Well, and elephants.
Elephants, biggest of their family class. Whales, the blue whale has infrasound. So, that notwithstanding, is that Sasquatch ultimately would be the biggest primate out there to date. So it's not a far stretch to realize that they may have infrasound.
So that could probably be what people consider zapping.
Zapping, mind speak, it can do a bunch of things to you. The creeped out feeling.
And people, based on their background and their belief system, read into it.
Right. Exactly. People will read into it and not know how to interpret this. Something my co-host on my radio show, Chris Bennett, talked about. He had gotten hit with infrasound once, or he believed to, and he felt an ear flutter. And I kind of looked at him going, I never heard of that before. It's kind of strange. And then a couple of years later, I was out doing a scout in the daytime with another researcher, and all of a sudden, we both got this creeped out feeling. Well, something's really off about the woods. I don't know why I feel this way.
Feel like you were being watched?
And then, well, I felt like that, and then all of a sudden, my ear started to twitch, just like Chris had said a couple of years ago. So, and I said, wait a minute, why is my ear doing that?
See, that's scientific. That's all based on evidence with other animals. It's a possible theory, but the descendants of Cain, the watchers of man, take off your clothes.
People have different belief systems, and they're going to attribute it to it. To me, it's very simple. What I've seen, how I've seen it act, being in a research area, the same research area now going on I've been there since 2000. It's now 2014. The same area I've been working very quietly. Now it's starting to get crowded, and there's some people that have kind of jumped my claim now. And it's got a little bit under my skin. But one in particular lives about 4 or 5 hours away from that area, much farther than me. And he had worked his way onto the team, and then all of a sudden he gets disgruntled and he leaves the team. And now I find out third party that he's trying to set up an expedition up in the area I brought him to. So I think that's kind of, low. And I think that, some of the back talking, and that's the other thing too, that I don't, one thing about this community that can be, I've met a lot of great people, but there's always a few that'll talk behind your back, and they don't think you know about it. But I've got friends out there, and it comes right back to you. Mm-hmm. And now I understand why he was saying what he was saying. But
it's part of the human flaw. It's
it is. But now, he's trying to take what I showed him and use it as his own. I just feel like completely at a loss. Well, that's okay. It's kind of funny. I get a call from a guy on a radio host that I've been on before, and he's saying, "Who the hell is this guy?" Blah blah blah. Because I was going to have him on my show, and he's talking behind your back basically, and this is what he's saying. Okay, no problem. I know how he operates. And then like 2 weeks later, when I unfriend him, he's like, "Hey bro, well, why'd you unfriend me?" It's like, what do you think I'm stupid? What do you think I'm a fool or something that I don't know? I didn't even respond to it. I was like, you know what?
You know what, dude? He's a nobody. If I have never heard of him, he's a nobody.
You are the Squatchdetetctive.
Yeah, he's a nobody.
I'm not all about that. A lot of people think that, yeah, there's times when I get on a TV show or I may blog and I work myself up and I sound like, oh, well, this is, but that's just a personality. In real life, it's like my public persona. But in my own real persona, I'm like, I'm nobody too. I'm just trying to, yeah, have I had luck in getting my name out there? Absolutely. Have I been in the right place at the right times? Absolutely. Is that part of my plan? Well, maybe. It's just kind of this persistent, slow but persistent type of mannerism that I've used over the years. the way I investigate, the way. But you know, by all means, I'm a very, very modest and modest type of person. I'm not one to tout myself.
You're also very genuine.
I try to be. You know, I mean, I'm in this. You know, one of the things I've said about this field is that it is probably one of the best things that I've ever done, because where else can you say, hey, I've got a friend in almost every state in the country?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I got plopped off in California, like I had done with the Dyer thing, within a couple of hours, I had contacts on the ground with me. You know, if I got dropped off in say New Mexico, I knew who I'm going to call. You know, I just pull out the old Rolodex. You know, and it's kind of funny. I really didn't get in tune to that too much, and that's something 2008 taught me. Was when I got at the safe house, I didn't have any way of getting back, because supposedly Biscardi was going to pay my way back. He said he didn't want me there to begin with, so I think these were all things he was saying to me to basically try to detract me from going there. But I went anyway.
Well, with all things in Bigfooting, there's always going to be the next hoaxer or the repeat offending hoaxer, like Rick Dyer and Todd Standing and Tom Biscardi. So the Squatch Detective blog and radio show is going to continue.
Absolutely. And like people see this wave, and by the end of the wintertime, people are saying, well, why are you writing about this stuff? Can't you give it a break? Well, right now I've got really nothing. In the wintertime, we're in New York, you're in the Northeast. It's snowed in. Now we're starting to get in nice weather. Yeah, now you're going to start seeing more posts about tactics, evidence, and less about the hoaxers. Of course, this is the time of year that the hoaxers come out with a lot more evidence. And there are other people that we haven't mentioned that should get honorable mention as well of being, you know, the hoaxers. Is the Sasquatch Ontario thing, as well as the Timber Giant Bigfoot thing.
Don't forget about the whole Daisy in a Box.
Well, Daisy in the Box, yeah, Ed Smith. And a lot of people knock the MABRC for that, but really, like I said, it happens. You can be played out for years on things. I wouldn't have necessarily put up with the amount of BS that the MABRC may have put up with, because that's just me. You know, sometimes I get impatient, and I'd be like, listen, you say you have these people. I want to meet them. If not, that's not. Yeah, that's nice. Now, I've had Ed Smith on my radio show before, too. And he sounded very credible, very everything. But it's kind of funny, you know. We talk about bromance. You know, one of our running team jokes is, you know, oh look at the bromance over here, and then we come out with Squatchback Mountain.
Squatchback Mountain. Oh, I like that.
Squatchback Mountain.
Squatchback. Yeah, I got a lot of flame for making jokes about Les Stroud and Todd Standing having the Brokeback romance.
No,
yeah, the perfect opportunity. Why is Todd Standing sleeping in the truck, and why is Les Stroud sleeping out in the sleeping bag? Oh, so close, guys. Go ahead. Question is, who would be the top? I think Stroud would be the top. I think
definitely.
Yeah.
You remember, does anybody remember Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Well, there's Jim in the field wrestling the alligator. Meanwhile, Myler and Perkins is back at the center on the TV studio.
You right? Yep. Tim Fasano. No, I know that Tim Fasano does not have a neck. We need to get him a neck.
Yeah, well, the one thing
he could be like our little Bigfoot stand-in.
The cranky Bigfoot stand-in.
I know. He's adorable in his own way. He was going to be your partner for Bigfoot Bounty, wasn't he?
No.
I thought he was going to be your partner. I thought that's what you told me.
Oh, wow. I was afraid they were going to put me with him.
Oh, then who was your partner?
It was going to be my co-host of my show, Chris Bennett.
Oh, I thought it was Fasano's. I thought it was the whole Fasano Kohl's dream team.
Now, Fasano is a real strange duck.
Tim Fasano here. I'd like to address the issue of the reoccurring videos that Sasquatch Ontario is putting up. Oh, the Bigfoot, he just knocked me down.
Every once in a while, he'll do something that completely pisses me off, but I let it go. Okay. And every once in a while, if you don't coddle him or call him up and say, hey, what's going on, Tim, then all of a sudden he'll come up and post against you like something wild.
Oh, gosh.
It's like a couple of times. And it's kind of funny because he's an interesting character.
He's kind of a carnival barker.
Well, there's also
He's one of the ones that Tammy said that stamps their feet or their hands on the table. Would
Pounds
you?
the table.
Yeah. He's one of those people.
Yeah. Let me
Look at me! Look at me! I'm Tim Mazzano! So we just found out that Steve Kohl's here, Mr. Squatch Detective, is not pro-kill, and that, you know, there is something perhaps to Bigfoots with their infrasound. Thanks a lot for joining us, Steve 2, and Tammy. Say goodbye.
Later, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Goodbye, Steve. It's been a real pleasure getting to meet you and talk to you.
Likewise.
And again, Steve, it was awesome. I enjoyed having this conversation with you tonight.
Good deal, Steve. I'll see you soon, probably.
Let's hope so.
For all of the merchandise that we offer on After Hours, such as Sweet Sassy Glassy, there are links down below. Click on the links. You can also go to Steve Kohl's website and purchase 50 large. And for all of you religious fanatics out there, what would Sasquatch do?